Hear me? And now the video feed can hear me too. I was just telling the audio feed that the audio feed can hear me, right? Because we don't stop streaming on the TalkStream Live and JesseLeePeterson.com/show and also the HakeReport.com/show also streams the Jesse Lee Peterson Show. Isn't that nice? And it also streams the Hake Report. That's cool. So, it is Monday, August 10th, 2020, 9:04 a.m. Not that late. Not that late, guys. You have to hang tight. It takes some getting used to. But I'm live on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, D Live, and Twitch should be live shortly as well. So thank you guys for joining. I have quite a show for you, and I do have calls already on the line. 888-775-3773. You can get in too if you like. But let's get right on with the show.
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's the Hake Report. The Hake Report. La la la. Oh, it's the Hake Report. The Hake Report. La la la.
Hey guys!
Oh, it's the Hake Report. The Hake Report. La la la. Oh, it's the Hake Report. The Hake Report. La la la.
So, how is it going, everybody? I am enjoying it. Is yet another week in Men's History Month, and we definitely need men, right? We have like a female understanding of, well, I say we, but well, maybe it applies to me and you. I don't know, but so many in America have like this female, not the right kind of female even. This just gross, emotional, false, easily susceptible to false propaganda version of Christianity going on in the world. I am going to be getting to your calls. Hang tight, guys, but I do want to talk. I'm going to be talking about this New York Times attack on Christian Trump, because Trump is a Christian and he's kind of like one of the realest kind of Christians that you've run into, right? The finger point is why I wake up in the morning. Keep it up, Hake. Appreciate that. But there are protests and riots going on around the world, and in some cases it is completely unjustified, and in other cases I really don't know, because a lot of it is in places that I don't even pay attention to, right? Like Lebanon. Anybody ever heard of Lebanon? Lebanon and on and on and on. I know some Lebanese people. They're cool. Kind of. Some of them are cooler than others. But according to the Skim, I wanted to present this to you, and then I'm going to talk about what's going on in America, because there are protests and riots in America, and I know that those are not justified. Really, mostly there's looting. But in Lebanon over the weekend, that's where Beirut is, which I think is the capital of Lebanon, and that's where the crazy explosion was. And Trump said his generals seemed to think that it seemed more like a bomb than an accidental explosion. This ammonium nitrate or something like that was stored for 6 years unprotected. I heard from Mobetta Stand-Up, a faithful D Live supporter who's busy at times. I think he's overseas. He may be, who knows what, but he happens to know some stuff, apparently, about this stuff, saying that it has to be pretty hot to be able to explode it. Or somebody said, I think Matt Living the Dream, who's also a faithful supporter on YouTube generally, said that it requires friction to explode this stuff. It's not just heat alone won't do it, according to him. I don't know what the real story is or what really happened with this Beirut explosion, but, corruption and incompetence and evil, they all go hand in hand. So it's every bit as probable in my mind, but we just don't know that it was pure incompetence as it could have been shady business, right? Like purposeful, malicious bombing. But thousands of people were, tens of thousands maybe, on the streets in Lebanon, in Beirut, really. That explosion has killed, according to the Skim, right, which is a female-written outlet, but 154 people dead from that thing. And that was a crazy explosion. Like, it was a huge fire and then a crazy explosion. Left hundreds of thousands of people homeless. I heard 300,000 people homeless. Possible negligence. Several lawmakers have resigned. And that's interesting. I wonder why they would resign. And the Lebanon prime minister is canceling early elections. The country was already messed up economically. So, what a mess. And is France, a Drudge headline asks, is France helping or trying to reconquer? I guess France controlled Beirut. That's why it's called Beirut. Isn't that a French name? I think it is. It sounds French to me. But there's riots in Bolivia there's a delayed election, reminiscent of what Trump wants to do here, right? And COVID is the excuse. According to the Skim, tens of thousands of demonstrators blocked main roads to protest Bolivia, which is a South American country, right? South America? I think so. I get confused. Bolivia is South America, right? Yeah. Delayed general election and its bad response to the coronavirus pandemic, which has killed over 3,000 people, which doesn't sound like a lot. I don't know how big Bolivia is, how big of a population it is. I wouldn't be surprised that it would be a poorly run country, though. I've heard some crazy things. I've known people who've stayed in Bolivia to teach kids stuff and stuff like that. And one friend of mine, he came back looking pretty rough. I don't know what happened, what kind of stress this guy was under, or what kind of water he was drinking, or what kind of food he was eating, or what happened, or what he got into over there, but he came back, hair falling out, very sickly. He got sick over there. I don't know. But these protests supposedly seem reminiscent of last year's contentious election when officials went dark on sharing results for 24 hours. Now protesters want the election to go ahead and demand a stable government. I don't know. You need to have stable people. And in Belarus, I don't know where Belarus is. Anybody know?
Belarus.
Oh, Belarus? I don't know anything. Belarus, suspected election corruption. And where is that? Is that in like Eastern Europe or something like that? Middle East. Same thing. Those places like kind of intersect, right? Kind of? Yeah.
Turkey.
Yeah, the Tsarnaev brothers, right? Aren't they from a place that's Muslim and yet they're white looking-ish?
Pretty typical of, like the Eastern European border and the side, the western part of the Middle East.
Thank you. So my impressions, as ignorant as I am of geography and history and all that stuff, I kind of have an idea. There is a place that's Bolivia, and there's a place that's another B-named country that is over there that sounds similar to me. So I could be pretty confused. But Belarus, listen to this. Protests erupted after exit polls showed a long-time incumbent president winning nearly 80% of the vote. Possible? Who knows? Sounds like it might be shady exit polling. His opponent entered the race after her husband, so it's a female opponent to this guy. Her husband was a popular blogger, and he was jailed and prevented from running for president. And she received less than 7% of the vote. That's pretty understandable, honestly, right? But this president is named Europe's last dictator. But come on, if you look at Europe is pretty corrupt now. They can say, oh, it's the last dictator, but look at Europe in general. It's very corrupt. So yes, maybe Belarus has some corruption and like dictator stuff, but the whole populations of Europe themselves are very corrupt and they put in globalist socialism, and they bring in, like, Ireland has a homosexual prime minister, right? And it wasn't by vote, I don't think, right? Sick. Anyways, they're saying that the election results are rigged. The demonstrations turned violent. And they say they seem to be blaming police because they used rubber bullets and water cannons. I think that we need to bring back water cannons. And I think here in America, and dogs. But I think that the reason that we don't use water cannons and dogs is because in the 60s or whatever, with the civil rights, so-called civil rights riots, we meaning the police, right, used fire hoses, water hoses on the men, right? And we used dogs on them. And that's considered racist or something dumb like that. But we need to use effective methods. It's crazy. But they were trying to disperse the crowds. One person reportedly killed in the protests. 100 arrested at least. Dozens injured. Whatever. I don't know whose side to take. It reminds me of the Hong Kong situation. And by the way, there's this guy, I think I played clips of him, named Jimmy Lai over in Hong Kong, who was arrested and accused of colluding with a foreign power. I think because he comes over to America and talks about the Hong Kong protests. And, you know, there's a little bit of rioting. No looting, though, in Hong Kong. Those Asians, they don't need to, well, they don't steal from their own, I guess. They may copy our copyrighted stuff and make knockoff stuff, but they don't rob stores like our rioters, blacks and Antifa and people. Anyways, Belarus is Eastern Europe. Thank you. Is it Muslim, though? I bet you it has a lot of Muslims. Yeah. Anyways. So I don't really know what's going on, but I'm just presenting that stuff to you. I told you about the riots in Chicago. I told you about them robbing an Apple store. I think they were in a Tesla store. They robbed a convenience store and threatened the guy, the owner, who had this Middle Eastern name, Adel or Abel. And many other stores. They went to Magnificent Mile. And it was over, according to the reports, right? The cops were told, hey, there's a guy with a gun. So they went, they found the guy that matched the description of the suspect. The guy started running and then turned around and fired shots at them. They fired shots at him, shot him. I think he's wounded. I think he was in the hospital, unknown condition, right? At least as from what I know. And 30 people show up, gather together, and say, oh, police shot a kid, a child, shot and wounded a child. And so they start rioting. This incident starts at 2:30 p.m. yesterday, right? Goes in through the night into the morning. Even in the morning light hours, you see them like outside of an Apple store. They drive into these stores, break the glass, and then people rush in. You see boxes coming out of trucks, and they have U-Hauls too. They're loading up cars, gathering stuff, and then the cars go up to a U-Haul and load up the trailer with all the loot. Is it loot? Loot. It's so crazy. And I didn't, they weren't naming in the New York Post article that I read and the Chicago CBS local news that I read, they did not name the protesters in terms of, what they looked like. Were they black? Were they white? Mostly black, according to the video footage that I saw. But, blacks are smart enough to get organized, right? But it was very highly organized. 100 arrests, 13 officers hurt. They threw bricks into at least one police car. It's crazy, though. And it was shocking to me kind of shocking. Not that shocking, honestly. But it's a little bit shocking to me to hear about on Twitter, which is a news publisher. They let you tweet if you stay good, according to them, right? But it's supposed to be a platform, but they're publishers, right? They were honoring Michael Brown, the guy from 2014, I think it was, July or August or something like that in 2014, maybe earlier. And he was walking around in the middle of the street after allegedly robbing a convenience store and strong-arming the owner of the convenience store with his little friend. August 2014, carrying a big pack of Swisher Sweets cigarillos, right? Cigarillos? I don't know how to pronounce it. And blunts. So I'm just taking you through this story, right? And we saw that on the footage of him strong-arming the guy. It's kind of up in the air whether he paid for it, but something happened where he needed to strong-arm the guy and push him into one of the racks. Little Middle Eastern or whatever guy. And then he's walking down Canton Drive, whatever, in the middle of the street. And then Officer Darren Wilson, a white guy, is driving, and he hears about this, robbery on the radio. And the fake news pretended that he hadn't known about it, but he did know about it. He sees first he sees the guy and says, "Hey, get off the side of the road, get off the middle of the road," because he's walking like he owns the road, right? This is Ferguson, Missouri. It's a suburb, but a heavy black area of St. Louis, Missouri. And he's defiant towards the officer. And the officer does notice that he has the pack of Swisher Sweets. And he notices, the description or whatever, because they did call in this robbery. And he had just come from some other call. And so he stops, and Michael Brown approaches the car and attacks him. He, wails on him, according to all of the evidence, right? Wails on him, meaning hits him, and goes for his gun, tries to shoot. I think the bullet maybe goes through his thumb and through the car door or into the car door. It was like an SUV, I think. And then he's going off, and the officer gets out, Darren Wilson gets out, and he says, "Stop." And so according to the story, Michael Brown turns around and charges at him. And he fires shots. It goes into his hand, goes into the top of his head, goes through different places, right? Finally, kills him. And he might have put his hands up briefly and then put him down and then started charging. That's according to all of the forensic evidence and witness testimony. There were a couple of blacks who were saying, but there were other blacks who were saying, I didn't finish my thought. There were a couple of blacks who were saying, "Oh, he had hands up. It was hands up, don't shoot." Just like this guy with the Chicago incident where they said, "Oh, police just shot kid. Let's go riot and loot." So we organize on who knows what. Maybe Black Twitter, or maybe they're moved on to WhatsApp or some other platform. I don't know if you can organize on TikTok. I don't know TikTok. Do people use Snapchat anymore? Yeah, a little bit. But, lies are common. The media accepts the lies from people like Obama. They accept the lies from people like the blacks and the Hispanic illegal aliens, saying, I am fleeing from domestic violence. And they write, without any incredulity, I don't know how to pronounce that word, just totally believing it, not incredulous at all. This person said they're fleeing domestic violence. And then they say, these people are fleeing domestic violence. They don't even say, they start to drop off saying, according to these people, which we don't know if they're trustworthy, they did lie to get into the country. They did break the law to get into the country. They're dishonest people. They just believe them. They believed Obama. They didn't talk about Obama's lies. Now they document everything that Trump says is mildly a little bit inaccurate. It's great, and they call it lies. So then this Michael Brown incident, he's laying in the street. They're trying to secure the scene. Some blacks are out of control. Others are just wanting to know what's going on. And then the media hounds all over it and acts like it's, oh, since it was a white officer and it was a black criminal suspect who died, it must have been racism. They what is it called? They racially profiled the officer as a racist. And some people even pretended like he was from the KKK and all that stuff. As if that would be evidence, right? It's pretty sick. And there were crazy riots. The evidence did not even allow the grand jury to, there was no evidence in favor of even charging the officer. And there have been three investigations. One at least by the locals. One at least by the DOJ, which was Eric Holder's DOJ. And Eric Holder was Barack Obama's black radical, anti-gun, anti-white, anti-conservative attorney general during the Obama administration. He was a sick person. And he would, believe me, he would have prosecuted if he could. But he couldn't. And so instead he came up with this phony Ferguson report that allegedly said that there was disproportionate racism against blacks. Disparate treatment of blacks and poor people in the city of Ferguson, when it wasn't actually disproportionate. In fact, it was, if anything, according to, and he said, way different from even the rest of the country, you know, in general, right? But that wasn't even true either. And that was debunked by honest men, researchers like Dr. John R. Lott Jr., who said even if you look at if you compare the pullover rates, you know, when you pull over drivers and stuff like that, they pulled them over less than the rest of the country compared to the population of the blacks. Interesting. And even there's a rhino writer who used to write for Wall Street Journal. He wrote an article in Wall Street Journal, Brett Stevens. Now he writes for New York Times. He's a never Trumper. But he talked about how they were, you know, this Ferguson report was easily debunked. So that was a second investigation. Holder couldn't convict this guy, couldn't even charge this guy. And then there was a third investigation just recently wrapped up when this black prosecutor, I think it was maybe the first black prosecutor or whatever, DA or whatever, over in St. Louis or Ferguson, wherever. He couldn't even do it, and he said, my heart breaks for the parents of Michael Brown. These are sick people. Really evil. Joe Maddock gave a Ninjagini and said, has any U.S. town that changed from white majority to black majority improved with that change? I don't know. Evgeny Crosby says, Hake, time to move on from Michael Brown / Dylan Roof. I don't know. I don't know if it's time to move on because they're still talking about it even to this day. To this day. On Twitter just yesterday, right? They're talking about honoring Michael Brown. And they're still talking about Dylan Roof. I get if you're tired of hearing about it. Evgeny Crosby 2020 says, all hell is going to break loose in the next 80 days. Is that how many days it is till the election? Yeah, probably so. Evgeny Crosby 2020 says, Christopher Hahn is tick. Yeah, Christopher Hahn debated Jesse Lee Peterson. If you could even call it that, he didn't even really offer a good debate. Although he did the typical liberal media citing a bunch of dumb factual information, like the Democrats have done something and Trump has done nothing about this COVID relief thing. Silosopher with the diamond, thank you very much. Appreciate you, Jesse Lee Peterson, for hosting the Hake Report on the show. Congrats to Fatty Watt for the subscription, courtesy of Dark Side of the Bear. What? Thank you. That's nice. And hell yeah, Bear. Oh, shoot. I can't say that. Garand Bear, very nice. Garand Bear likes to shoot M1 Garands. But he can call it Garand. I don't mind. That's how I knew. But anyways, as you all know, I'm demonetized on YouTube. But thank you once again to my faithful de facto producer and intern, if you want to call him that, Will, for fixing my channel. It should be palatable again. Unless I just have to outright delete some episodes because of the stuff that I say. I don't know. I'm going to get to some calls real quick, and then I'm going to talk about this New York Times versus Christians and Trump, who is every bit a good example of a Christian as anybody else that you know, pretty much. I don't know. Let me quickly get to my second favorite caller. I know you guys love him. Earl is in Michigan, and he's been on hold for some time. Earl, thank you for holding. What's up? Oh, man.
Yeah, hold on.
Hey. How you doing, Earl?
Oh, I'm doing fine.
You sound like you're on speakerphone, though.
Oh, I am, because I was waiting for you to get through with your tirade.
Oh, okay. Well, come off his speakerphone now, buddy.
I'm off of it, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But I want to address the Michael Brown issue, because
Okay.
it's clearly you don't know what you're talking about. That's all you read and heard about.
Did you read the Ferguson report from the DOJ?
I read the whole DOJ report.
So did I.
And in fact, I know more about it than you. I just won't tell you why. Because I keep my anonymity. But
interesting.
You're wrong about certain things, and they were wrong. I mean, the report you was just reciting.
You're talking about you're saying Eric Holder was wrong?
No, I'm talking about. Of course, he couldn't. He could only go with evidence when you have conflicting testimony. There's no way you can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt a policeman's guilt.
Are you aware? Earl, are you aware that the forensic evidence supports the people's testimony who said that he did not do the hands up, don't shoot, and in fact he was charging the officer? Are you aware that the forensic evidence supports that?
I read the report, and it said it had portions of it on conclusion that they couldn't sustain that he didn't raise his hand up, but they said he raised it up somewhat. But they said they couldn't also sustain that he, because Darren Wilson said he had his hand in his pocket and hands and was reaching for something. They said they couldn't substantiate that because you had conflict in testimony. You had the district attorney, Mike McCollum, Bob McCollum, I forget his name, McCollum, had interviewed 100 people. Ain't no way you're going to have 100 people with consistent testimony. Some going different somewhat, and a lot. So you can't go into court with just witness testimony that don't coincide.
And so some of them are going to lie, right? But you didn't answer my question. I said, are you aware that are you aware, Earl? Are you aware that the forensic evidence supports the fact that he was charging the officer and that he went for the officer's gun? Are you aware of that?
No, not.
Then you don't know. Then you don't know more than me.
Yes, I do, because I read it.
No, I read it too.
I read the same conclusion that I'm talking about the conclusion. That's why they couldn't conclude that what the witness said about Darren Wilson or Mike Brown.
So then why does the liberal media that you love so much support the false narrative that he had hands up, don't shoot, that he was a victim?
Because they couldn't prove it. That's what I'm saying.
That he was a victim?
He didn't have it. They said they couldn't, by overwhelming evidence and testimony, they can't prove it.
They said
because they can't prove
Earl,
they couldn't.
Earl.
Go ahead.
Washington Post, Jonathan, the far left lying liberal black male writer for Washington Post, Jonathan Capehart, wrote, the hands up, don't shoot was a lie. He said it was a lie. It's not just that they couldn't prove it. He said it was a lie. So now.
Well, he can say anything just like you can. You can
Earl,
say
you
anything.
are such a phony person. You act just like the whites allegedly did back in the day, who lynched blacks on nothing more than an accusation.
White racist.
Nothing more than an accusation.
All you do is propagate white supremacy.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Blacks are, and so forth, and like you superior. You ain't nothing, boy.
I didn't say I was something. You're the one putting words in my mouth. I never said any of the junk that you just said.
I'm listening to your conversation for a couple of years now.
I know.
What you do.
But you're deaf.
This is all you do.
But you're deaf, Earl.
You're talking about
Earl.
blacks
Earl.
incessantly.
Earl, you're deaf.
Say what?
I said you're deaf. And I don't mean physically deaf.
You don't let me
Earl.
finish a statement, but you want
Yes,
to
I did.
I've let
you finish your statement.
I let you shut up. But getting on this, like I said, I didn't want to talk about that because you don't know what you're saying.
Well, it's a fact. And this whole thing about Earl, the whole thing about him putting his hand in his pocket. I don't know if he put his hand in his pocket or if he was just.
No pocket.
Hold on, Earl. Hold on. It sounded like he put his. Hold on, man. Let me finish.
Go ahead.
He sounded like he was holding up his shorts because he was one of those guys that sags his pants. And so he was holding up his shorts in order to charge at the guy. You know how when you have baggy pants? Well, I don't know if you've ever had them.
Yeah.
But when you have baggy pants, or you see the gangsters that have baggy pants, they hold up their pants while they're running. And that's what he was doing when he was charging the officer.
From him in the store, his pants wasn't sagging.
Yeah, they were.
And so forth.
But he wasn't running. He wasn't running, so of course he didn't have to.
With big pants.
Anyways.
So, I mean, you always make black to be some kind of humongous monster or something to be scared of.
He was definitely acting like a monster. Michael Brown was definitely acting like a monster. That's how Officer. Hold on, Earl. Hold on, Earl. Hold on, Earl. That's how Officer Darren Wilson described him.
Of course
he was acting like an angry demon.
He ain't the first one that describes black as some big monster and so forth. I was afraid for my life.
And Earl.
That's standard practice.
Earl, are you pretending that isn't a justified description of how some blacks act?
Some blacks, yeah.
Including Michael Brown.
White cops have been conditioned to always say they can shoot somebody in the back and say, I feared for my life.
Yeah.
That's standard.
But you're just complaining about nothing based on ignorance, Earl. You're complaining about nothing.
I'm telling you facts.
No. But it's based on ignorance, Earl. It's so lame.
No. Disagree because you don't know what you're talking about.
Earl, you're the one who just made up this thing.
Than you do, boy.
I don't care what you say, boy. Earl, shame on you. This man lost his job. He has to go into hiding. He's still being smeared by people like you based on no evidence. based on zero evidence against Darren Wilson, and they're pretending.
Got away with so forth, killing folks.
What?
And they've been
what, Earl?
I said a lot of cops have gotten away with killing black folks. You can go city by city.
Name one. Name one, Earl.
Name
a cop who's gotten away with killing a black when it was unjustified killing.
I don't know their personal name.
Then you're just saying stuff.
But
you're just saying stuff, Earl.
They don't exist because can't name them by name.
The point is, you're joining into the lynch mob that's punishing Darren Wilson. Hold on, Earl. Hold on, Earl. I'm putting you on hold. I put Earl on hold. Earl, nobody can hear you. You're on hold. He's punishing Darren Wilson for some myth about white cops being told to be afraid of blacks, when in fact, black and Hispanic cops are more likely to errantly shoot an unarmed black suspect. Black and Hispanic cops, according to a study from Philadelphia. But this guy is going to smear the white cops, and he's going to smear Darren Wilson, punishing him for some theory that he's heard. What a sick person. Earl, you're sick.
I know you are. And
whatever.
Reason, so they stick all the time. But, I was going to talk about, Jesse Lee's Bible service. I mentioned that on this show. It was kind of amazing.
Yeah, I'm the producer for the. I put that stuff out online, so you can thank me and the black engineers for making that happen, and Esteban, who helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was I heard you in the background making noise and disrupting one of the parishioners. That was asking
he was talking too hard. He was talking too hard into the mic. He had the mic right up to him.
The thing,
like less than an inch away, and it's supposed to be 6 to 10 inches away from you.
Listen to this.
All right.
As I listened, their effort mimicked Jesse Lee to a T.
Huh?
All their answers, when he asked the question, it was like he was answering. That was Jesse Lee answering his own question. If I didn't know they had different voices, I would think that was Jesse Lee answering his own question. If they were answering in written form, it would be like Jesse Lee answering his own question.
That's silly, Earl.
Vision and motto and plot to just what Jesse Lee would say. I mean, what programming?
Earl. Hey, Earl. Earl, listening to you is like listening to MSNBC. You're programmed as well.
Yeah, listening to you is like listening to David Duke on steroids. But,
well, flattery will get you nowhere, Earl.
I know
appreciate the compliment. I'm just playing. David Duke. Hey, hold on, Earl. This is so silly. David Duke is like a historian. He knows stuff. He criticizes the Jews. I do like none of that. I mean, I criticize Jews now and then.
You like him, don't you?
What? I don't even know the man.
Him, huh?
Huh?
You like him, don't you?
I like you too. What's the big deal? You're a hater. You're full of hate.
No, I'm just pointing out the facts.
No.
I'm pointing at what you say. And I'm pointing it back in your face.
Well, the point is, Earl. Okay. For those of you who listen to church, let's say you just repeat what Jesse says and you're not living it yourself. You don't know it for yourself. All right, check yourselves. But Earl, you're so obsessed with criticizing everybody who agrees with Jesse when you won't even check yourself. And you're old enough to know better. Not everybody in church is younger than you who's repeating that stuff.
You think you're old enough to question Jesse at some time?
I gotta go.
Instead of following like a lackey of everything he say and repeat him like he's your daddy, like he's your guru. He taught you everything you know, and you're just a little mentor.
This is verbal abuse.
Worship him.
I don't have to take this verbal abuse.
Facts are facts. Sometimes facts hurt.
Whatever.
But
no facts. The truth is beautiful. Anyways, man.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Let's talk again later.
Yeah, we'll do it another time.
All right.
Adios, amigos.
Adios. Man. Hydro PX says, hey, Hake. Nice. Thank you to DJ Hardmouse for the lemons. Appreciate it. John Wicks 15, WX15, gave a diamond and said, Earl, even his partner put a hole in the BS story. Oh, you're talking about the buddy of Michael Brown? I'm not sure. John WX15 says, poor Earl, he was born with a foot in his bleep. Joe Maddock gave a Ninja Guinea and said, Earl doesn't mind the long Hake hold times. His cell phone bill is paid for by the U.S. taxpayers. Oh, Earl. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. But you can answer that accusation next time on the show. But maybe. But I don't believe it. But he probably, I mean, he supports those people. Hydro PX gave a diamond and said, blacks only want you to listen. Yeah, that's so true. They're like, be quiet and listen. Telling the whites to be quiet and listen. If the whites could get any quieter, they would be like dead. Because whites are extremely quiet and blacks are extremely loud. And everybody knows this. How Computer Smell says, gave a super chat on streamlabs.com/the Hake Report. Thank you. It says, Earl goes from senile to sassy quicker than Mays can finish a sentence. And that's fast. Because Mays is also known as Motormouth Mays. I didn't come up with the name, but I do support it. Motormouth Mays, no offense, but it's a fact. And that's from Tim from Louisiana, past, present, future, creator of the Jesse Lee Peterson Discord, which is woefully neglected. But we come around every now and then, and I do appreciate it. But it's hard to keep up with everything. In fact, it's hard to keep up with anything. Let me quickly get to Defective Drone out of North Carolina. He's been on hold for some time. Defective Drone wants to talk about the mess in Chicago and the shooting victim. Hey, thanks for holding, man.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes.
So, yeah, I was wanting to talk to you about last night's wonderful street party celebrating the saving of a black life in Chicago.
All right. Is that what happened? Cops shot him and then saved his life?
He was, they were so considerate as to spare his black life that they threw a street party, didn't you see?
Oh, you're referring, yeah. I mean, I did see about the looting and the riots.
It's a shame, too. The very second somebody does something that is in consideration and, actively considering their lives, they still do the exact same thing.
I know. That's a good point, because this man had a gun, and he wasn't around cops. The cops went to the area, found him, and he shot at them, and they shot back. He was a danger to the community. Somebody who's willing to shoot at cops, you don't want in your neighborhood. That's a fair point.
It's a horrible thing, too. It's probably going to turn out that more people are going to be killed by the reaction to his life being spared.
Yeah. Yeah, they shot and wounded him, and he did not die, apparently. That's crazy, man. Yeah, it's so backwards. These people are so backwards. The Black Lives Matter themselves. They throw their own lives away by being lesbians and homosexuals and radicals, and wanted to defund the police, get rid of the police entirely, or just redirect the funds to more programs that make them feel good for being wrong. It's very sick. These are sick people. And they want to fund social programs. Social workers, there's a few social workers who are honest, but for the most part, it's overrun with liberals who make the problems worse.
It's a shame, too, whether it's Chicago or Baltimore or wherever you go, it's always followed up, whether or not it's based in fact or not, by a jubilee of gentle giants, spreading the love. Figures that you follow in the footsteps of the Marxist founders and spread the wealth by force.
Yeah. They they threatened one convenience store owner, and then they were very polite and just said, "We're going in," to one jewelry store owner. And you never know who you're going to run into with these looter types. They could be professionals who are just, "We're going to do this, don't get in our way," very polite, or "We're going to do this or else you're going to die." Probably the convenience store owner had more to lose, maybe, and was...
Given the fact it was a jewelry store, they probably noticed a facial cosmetic feature of the proprietor, decided not to go the...
Yeah, and maybe a jewelry store owner, he has insurance and can afford the catastrophic loss like that, whereas a convenience store owner is just scraping by. Who knows? But these people are so evil that they'll tear apart and destroy. And really, that's what causes crime. Crime, I mean, that's what causes poverty. So this so-called poverty, right? The crime. Mm-hmm. The crime is what's causing it. It's not the poverty that's causing the crime. But these liars like AOC.
These people could be building up their own lives, investing in the community, investing in the gold in the jewelry store, but instead they choose to invest in lead. And
you know what else? They were using there's these bikes called Divvy bikes, DIVVY, and it's operated by this company, far left company that supports Black Lives Matter. Normally it's like a ride. They give you rides called Lyft, Lyft. Lyft. It's kind of like it's an Uber, whatever you call it, competitor.
Yeah, they're a rideshare competitor.
Uber clone. And so Divvy bicycles are operated in Chicago and a couple of suburbs. And they were using these bikes to transport themselves around to go loot and riot and break store windows. And of course, they were using cars as well, cars to crash into the storefronts so that the looters could run in, steal stuff, and take all the loot to these U-Hauls. I don't know if it was more than one U-Haul. It sounded like it was. But these are sick people.
There were at least three distinct U-Hauls.
Okay. It's crazy. And that's really that's the tip of the iceberg in terms of the immorality, because that's immoral, right? That's the tip of the iceberg in terms of the immorality that's infecting most of the country.
Yeah, and, it's a shame, too, that we, even amongst other cultures, even if you were to entirely quarantine the black community amongst themselves, there are still those amongst the other cultures who would aspire to do the very same thing, if not simply for clout.
Oh, you mean like riot and all that stuff and pretend to take up for the poor blacks and stuff like that? Yeah. Yes, there's no the physical solutions, there are some physical solutions such as stronger, tougher policing and maybe things that Trump wants to do, law and order, right? Those are physical solutions, but you have to deal with people's evil spirits, the evil spirits that's possessing these people. And you have to deal with it in yourself. You have to deal with it in the mainstream media. I love that Trump is calling the media the enemy of the people, because the mainstream media is taking up for these people. They're supporting the lies of Michael Brown's victimhood. They're sick people. And I'm going to get to the New York Times versus Trump at the beginning of this coming hour, how they're just repeating these lies against Trump and pretending to be baffled that Christians support him.
But hey, don't you know that Michael Brown was trying to spread change? He was out there in front of that store spreading the word of Jesus Christ himself.
Yeah. I know, it's so funny. They called that guy that was resisting arrest. He was resisting arrest, but he was also high. George Floyd, the one about whom the riots have been going for lately around the country and the world. They were calling him. Christianity Today had this article called "The Gospel Legacy of George Floyd." St. Floyd, James. Get it right. Yeah. They're acting like he was this Christian guy, and he was maybe nicer than Michael Brown. He's in his 40s. Even though he's still strong, he probably has less angst and aggression to get out, but he was a mess. He was not right. And he brought he brought everything on himself. He wanted to get on the floor.
I'm surprised he even lasted as long as he did. I mean, he had enough in him to kill multiple men, it seemed.
Is that true? Yeah, I heard that. I was listening to, I'm so bored with these stories that I don't look into them myself anymore. For the most part, I get the gist of the story, but I don't pore over it like I did with, for example, Officer Michael Slager, who shot the Walter Scott in the back. I'm just bored with these stories now, right? But I heard from somebody who's generally a reliable source, Nick Fuentes, that he had overdose levels of fentanyl in his system. Like, it was overdose levels of fentanyl. And he also had meth in his system. And apparently that was part of what was going on.
He was screaming that he couldn't breathe, and he actually at one point begged to be put on the ground. Therefore, he could breathe more easily, long before any sort of kneeling occurred.
Exactly. Yep. At least it was definitely beforehand. That's for sure. He's like, let me get on the ground, because they put him in the cab of the police vehicle. Anyways, Defective Drone, it's good to hear from you. I appreciate the clarity.
Thanks for your time, Mr. Hake.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.
Before I finish up the hour, let me quickly get to Pierre, a first-time caller in New Hampshire. Been on hold for some time now. And then I will get to the rest of you guys after I cover this New York Times versus Trump and Christians, fellow Christians of Trump, right? Some of them don't realize it. But Pierre, out of New Hampshire, thanks for holding. What's up?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for allowing me to get on there and say hello. I wanted to point out I live in New Hampshire, just to remind you, and we haven't had an influx through government concepts like Minnesota taking all these people from Africa and so forth. But before...
You have not had refugees and immigrants flooding
Correct.
in? Okay.
Yeah, and so the state of Maine, these this form of governance, when it is taken over by liberals, they're so destructive. Like, even in the state of Maine, they're starting to do that. And they're trying to do it in a couple cities. We have a couple small cities here in southern New Hampshire that are, they're trying to get at the helm and kind of curate, like they always do, about how much they're helping people.
Yeah.
But when you talk to people that own buildings, and when they have a tenant who... So this is different than what I was going to talk about, but it's amazing that if you talk to people that own properties, so they get involved with Section 8, and when they work out this great opportunity as when you're renting out apartments, you don't have to knock on the door and listen to the sadness of someone that doesn't have the money to pay. But with Section 8, it's just in your bank account as a owner of a property.
Wow.
So they started working out these deals with the government, the local government that was taking in these people and giving them Section 8. But what happened is some of these apartment buildings, they said it was crazy where you'd have this family would have, let's say, 8 chickens right in the kitchen, and it destroyed the kitchen. No, but hey, it's laughable, but it's a very sobering moment when they leave. This owner of this property is like, how would someone think this made any sense?
Right.
That's their So then what ends up happening, when a couple other men over the years, and it's been tough talking to them, it's like, how do we almost educate these people to get up to speed of the pace of life that is unfortunate to a certain extent for a lot of people, that you can't do that. You can't just go outside your apartment building and just light a small fire.
Right.
They don't. So that's one of the things where people are trying to figure it out, because once these people are here, they're like, well, you don't want them destroying someone's, property that they're renting out.
Right.
Through Section 8 or whatever. So
that's so sick.
Sorry, go ahead.
I said that's so sick. Anyways, you go on.
No, it is. But another thing was interesting. Trying to reach people that support Black Lives Matter. As we know what it is and everything. When you try to talk to them, and if you're really trying to help, not you. I mean, when I've tried to ask myself, how can I help them?
Yeah.
I try to perturb something within them, because the majority of the people in New Hampshire that went to these rallies that happened at our state capitol and so forth, the majority of them are all white.
Right.
And a lot of them are doing it for photogenic Instagram posting,
virtue
signaling, however you call it. But here's the thing that's interesting. When you go up to them, and you already know, if I say, hey, listen, all lives matter, they get really upset. It's phony upset. I understand all that. But what we should suggest to them is because they should just write only Black Lives Matter. Because what I've noticed is like these people, they write it on cardboard with Sharpies. That's how much effort they put into this actual concept that they try to celebrate.
Right.
So when I'm like, all right, well, that probably won't work because I'm not trying to pick a fight, but I do want to perturb them. You know what I've had some success with these white people and over the years with black people is you say to them something that's an absolute certainty. Because I was a bit frustrated last week and I vented on Get It Out on Friday on Jesse's show. And one of the things I was just completely thrown, it just drives me insane is that there's 14,000 school districts. And they're doing the one thing that I was told when I was a kid, the narrative of slavery. They said they wouldn't teach people how to read. And I was always like, what does that mean? Like, phonetic English is easy to learn. How could you not learn that? If you learn how to speak English, you pronounce the word, there's only 24 letters. You know, I always was confused by that. But I think I understand a little bit deeper meaning of not knowing how to read because that is what's happened to our schools. And I know that Jesse and yourself, you guys have been covering that for some time. Jesse, even further back, these schools are completely compromised, and they're not teaching anyone how to read. So when everything started happening with the protesting, my house was a bit divided, and I noticed that there was these young teenagers that are so committed to the school. It's a longer story in itself, personal-wise, but I noticed that they are literally just writing on cardboard, and I was like, they don't get it. But if you tell them you don't know how to read, that means you don't know how to have remedy, which is your right, using the court of law. Because in this country, the reason why we have a court of law is it was to constantly iron out truth. You have a plaintiff and a defendant. You have what's right, always arguing with the sinner, the liar, the deceiver. And you have a jury of your peers. And you should always be able to, like when I was so happy to join you guys. I've been listening for some time with your fellowship, and it's so important where we all, if we're a jury, you can hear the truth, and you can see the truth. So that's why our country has the greatest court system if it upholds the main concept. The self is always arguing with another self. So if you're going to be divorced of self, you have to iron out what happened with evidence, truth. And it's just fantastic.
But the people are so corrupt anymore that the courts are corrupt.
They don't know how to read. They're completely illiterate. So when you perturb them and you tell them, I was like, yeah, you could probably read Harry Potter. And they look at me like, what do you mean? I know how to read. Because they're like seniors in high school. You just say to them, you don't know how to read. They're like, I know how to read. I was like, no, you don't. If I give you a 60-page mortgage document, you wouldn't be able to read it.
Interesting.
If I gave you a lease agreement, you wouldn't know how to read it. Or how do you get a car? You guys don't know anything about reality. You're being kept in a lie. You're being, I'm trying to perturb and tell them you don't know how to read, because if you know how to read, you know how to read legalese. You would understand how court systems work. You would understand what jurisdiction is. You would understand, you just try to let them know how much they are so unaware in a meaningful way. Because
Interesting.
Anytime you start, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little excited. I apologize. What did you say?
I said interesting, man. I appreciate the point. That is kind of true. I mean, I don't even, who even wants to read that stuff? And nowadays it's just deceivers who purposely write stuff in deceitful, deceptive ways. Lawyers are some of the scum of the earth anymore. Same thing with judges too. Man, I appreciate it, Pierre. I got to run.
All right, have a good day.
All right.
Keep listening. I appreciate your efforts that you're always putting forth.
Thanks
for letting me call.
All right.
Have a good day.
Take care. I'm going to take a couple of minutes, and then I'll be right back, guys. I'm going to cover this New York Times. There's this woman. What's her name? Elizabeth J. Diaz, with an S, not with a Z. S. D-A-S. D-I-A-S. I'm going to cover that. Interesting points. I may touch on some of the stuff that he was talking about. Just kind of interesting. And then I will get to calls and the rest of your super chats. Appreciate you guys. Hang tight. I'll be right back. And we're back. I am James Hake. It is 10:08 a.m. here in Los Angeles, and I will be getting to your calls. Appreciate you guys hanging on. 888-775-3773. 888-775-3773. There's one line open for you guys. So, let me quickly, I had to listen closely to Pierre. And he was talking about how you don't know how to read like a mortgage document or a contract and all that stuff. Who here reads? Press 1 if you read like these social media things that you have to click, okay, I agree. 2. Press 1. Press 2 if you never read. Press 3 if you have read like once. I read one of them. Because I don't read any of that stuff. I didn't even read this stuff when I bought my car. And I ended up getting a little bit of trouble because, well, I think I bought my car the same day the first day that I went out looking for a car. Didn't even think about it. I was like, this is the car I want. I got it. Yeah, so most people are pressing 3, a lot of 2s. One guy says 1. Based America first. Genbug. Man, hot computer smell. Man, what the heck? All you guys are reading that stuff? A decent number of 2s. I'm with the 2s. I never read that stuff. Are you guys lying? But anyways, I got like a car alarm that I didn't want. Had that removed. Had him give me the money back. And there was something else. Oh yeah, they didn't machine the rotors because it was a used car. And the rotors were like, when you step on the brake, it wobbles. Like you feel a wobbly in your steering wheel. And that comes from the brake rotors wearing badly, so they had to machine them. And they wanted to charge me for it, but I got it like that. It had like 70,000 miles on it almost when I bought it. And it was only 2 years old. It was like February 2011, and it was a 2009 vehicle. It's crazy. They must have driven to Vegas and back like every day or every weekend or something like that. But, I mean, I guess you can drive 70,000 miles if you get it in 2008 and it's a 2009. But crazy. But you don't even always really have to read because you can just. I pulled what Jesse did when Jesse Lee Peterson they tried to burn him when his vehicle got run into when it was parked outside the front. And there were no witnesses, hit and run, and like Allstate or Farmers Insurance or whatever insurance company he was using, they didn't want to pay him anything. So he held a sign saying, I got done over by Allstate. I did that. I did that with the dealership where I got my used car because they didn't want to give me back my money and take away my car alarm and stuff like that. And then I had to threaten to do that to machine the rotors. They were acting like it was my fault, like I was pumping the brakes or something, or stepping on the brakes not enough or something like that. Like I could do it that fast. So anyways, there are street ways of fighting too. You can win on the streets, and it's better to win on the streets than it is in court. And by streets, I just mean like battling it out in like real life, because the courts seems like they're against, for the most part, seems like they're against people who are right. You know what I mean? They're against men. They're against Christians. They're against whites. But it is good to read that stuff now and then, especially if it's like a mortgage, right? You buying a house. Seems like it. Anyways, guys, I got to get through this thing. The New York Times is attacking you. What's new? New York Times, I saw this trending on Twitter. Jesse Lee Peterson covered it, but I have more details, right? Of course, right? More details. Christianity will have power, which is a quote from Trump. And that's like a headline from this New York Times article. A pledge bonding Trump to evangelicals. And they mean white evangelicals. And they come out and say it too. And it's as if the whites are into whiteness. No, the whites are just into what's right. Because these white evangelical Christians are not, they're not even into the whiteness. Not even as much as they should be, to be honest. They should be recognizing the attack on, I mean, I think they do see the attack on whites. It's the attack on actual justice. But the white evangelical Christian support may seem mystifying to the outside observer who is blind, right? Because you have to be blind to not see. I don't mean Nazi. To not be able to see the white Christians and whites support Trump. It's an article by this woman, Elizabeth J. Diaz, D-I-A-S. I forgot to get a picture of her. Would you Google a picture of her? D-I-A-S, Elizabeth Diaz. And I don't know if she's Hispanic or what her name is, but this is from her article in New York Times. This is mostly quotes from the article. At the same speech in which he said that he could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and get away with it and not lose any support, he was speaking President Trump. Had you heard that line? I could shoot somebody in Fifth Avenue and my supporters would still be with me. Because we would know that it would be a justified shooting. Because Trump attacks those who attack him, right? And he's right in his attacks. They tried to call him a bully. You know, they were trying to call these white Christians supporting, that's her. I don't know. Never trust. You know, she does not, based on what I'm reading in her article, she does not have, I don't know, an understanding of Christianity or Christians or reality. She's repeating just lies against Trump, and I'll get into that. But they tried to call Trump a bully, a bully for them, for the white Christians. And no, he's not. He is for the white Christians, because in the same way that he's for everybody, because he is for everybody. He's for what's right, though. Talk about a boomer. I love boomers. But he is not a bully. That's so stupid. Anyways, he spoke at Dort University, D-O-R-D-T, Dort University at Sioux Center, Iowa. Iowa, beautiful place. That's where Representative Steve King is from. And when Steve King was at his high school, it was mostly white, and now it's mostly Hispanic. And so, I don't know, he got primaried. No, did he get Yeah, he did get primaried with the support of that sleazy woman who's supposedly the chair of the GOP, I want to say DNC, RNC, the Republican National Committee. Mitt Romney's, basically, it is the same thing as the DNC. Sleazy people. Ronna McDaniel, the niece of Mitt Romney, she said, his white supremacist rhetoric has no place here. What an evil woman. Sleazy woman. Anyways, this is another quote from that speech on which he said it can shoot anybody on Fifth Avenue. I will tell you, Christianity is under tremendous siege, whether we want to talk about it or whether we don't want to talk about it. And yet we don't exert the power that we should have, Trump said. And that's because, it's like it's a weak, simp, cucked version of Christianity where you just surrender to what's evil against people who are right. Christianity will have power, Trump said. If I'm there, referring to if he becomes president, this was before he became president, right? You're going to have plenty of power. You don't need anybody else. You're going to have somebody representing you very, very well. That's a weird-looking place, but he was speaking in front of these 3-story pipe organs. And he said, remember that. This woman is such fake news. That's a tweet from Elizabeth J. Diaz that we're showing on the screen. It was a small Christian college where he was speaking, right? Evangelicals for years, this is what this woman is writing. Evangelicals for years have defined themselves as values voters. people who prize the Bible and sexual morality and loving your neighbor as yourself above all. And by saying that, she's implying that Trump doesn't love his neighbor, which is a total lie. Of course he does. Donald Trump was the opposite. He bragged about assaulting women. Fake news. He didn't brag about assaulting women. It's such a dumb statement. So that's fake news number one on the part of this Elizabeth Diaz. Even when he talked about grab him by that whatever, he was, that was behind closed doors, and he was saying they let you do it. They throw themselves on you. You can do anything. I can just go up and start kissing them. When you're a star, they let you do it. That's not assault. He got divorced twice, which is true, but that's not, it's in the past, right? It's in the past. He's not getting divorced again, at least not that we know of. He built a career off gambling. That's not true. The places that he owns Trump Tower in Vegas, which is relatively new. It has no gambling in it. Did you know that? And he also owned the place, was it Taj Mahal in Atlantic City? Did it even have casino gambling in it? I don't know. Or was that managed by somebody else? His career wasn't off gambling. So that's another lie. He cozied up to bigots. Who? Who did he cozy up to? Who did he cozy up to? Does anybody know what that's a reference to even? Blacks. Oh yeah, he was friendly with Al Sharpton a little bit. Or I don't even know. I don't think he was friendly with Al Sharpton. But he was, he got some award from the NAACP. Those are bigots. Bigot means you can't stand other people's true opinions. But when they say bigots, they mean somebody who's telling the truth about other races than whites, right? Which is never told. He rarely went to church. Ooh. My dad rarely went to church, and he was a better Christian than anybody else in my family. My dad rarely went to church, and he was a better Christian than anybody else in our family who went to church regularly. Seemingly, anyways. So that doesn't mean anything. He refused to ask for forgiveness, which is another sleazy type of a lie, because he was talking about, I try to do right the next time. He doesn't try to do the cop-out thing where, oh, I can't help it. No, he tries to do it right the next time when he makes a mistake or an error, a moral error. So she calls it a contradiction that has held for years. They stood by him when he shut out Muslim refugees, which is so silly. He shut out people from, he wanted to stop the refugees from coming in. That is a good thing because the refugee system has been very corrupt. Just look up A-N-N, I think. I don't think it has an E at the end. Corcoran. C-O-R-C-O-R-A-N. Ann Corcoran. She used to run this website called Refugee Resettlement Watch. The website was shut down by WordPress without any notice, I think. But she's a Christian lady. I think that she's Christian. She acts like one. But who has documented how the refugee resettlement program has been putting refugees into these communities against their will to just plant different, families, POC families, right? Not Christians, generally. Some of them are Christians, but they're liberals. They fall for the racism thing. To just scatter a whole bunch of people of color to bring up Democrats in these other areas, and crime, and all kinds of mess. And that's considered anti-Christian? And Muslim refugees? And we had terror attacks. He was protecting the country. But, she's not an honest woman, this lady. She works for New York Times. When he separated children from their parents at the border, they stood by him. Please. You have to separate the children. You don't even know if those are the real parents. Anyways, stupid lies. And who cares? They're illegal aliens. Anyways, when he issued brash insults over social media, please, he's fighting with people. Ted Cruz was attacking him and smearing him? When he uttered falsehoods as if they were true. Elaborate. Which falsehoods? He hasn't said anything untrue, really. He said stuff you could say, oh, that's not exactly accurate. But he said stuff like, they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists. They called that a lie. They said, all are not doing that. He didn't say all, but they're liars. When he was impeached, yeah, like we should pull support because a guy was impeached by Democrats. Please. This lady is phony. So here is when the people speak. She actually interviewed some people in this hick town in, where again? Iowa. And I don't mean hick town in the terms of whatever. So one guy talked about the good old days. You don't lock the doors. I never take the keys out of the car. That's what he remembers. Somebody says, cool it with the racial slurs, James. Hick is not a bad word, is it? Anyways, I guess it is used against whites and Southerners and stuff. But this guy, some of these people are not the type of Christians that most support Trump, who really love Trump. Listen to how they describe it. His wife had been quiet, letting him do all the talking. This is this lady referring to this family. There's this man, and he has a wife and some kids in his 30s. His wife had been quiet, letting him do all the talking. She did not go to Mr. Trump's speech, and politics were not her thing. Isn't that so refreshing? Often, the men around here were more vocal than their wives about supporting the president. Now she spoke up. Isn't that so nice, though? That's how it really should be. Because even when you hear conservative women getting all animated about politics, it's usually there's something awry. There's something awry. She's taking it too far or whatever. Here is this from this woman. The religious part is huge for us as we see religious freedoms being taken away. And that's true. Just pure freedoms, period, being taken away. The right to discriminate is taken away. The First Amendment has been under attack with this fake hate speech and fake hate crimes laws. If you don't believe in homosexuality or something, you lose your business because of it. And that's a core part of your faith, whereas I see Trump is defending that. And Trump is okay with the gays, but he's also okay with the people who have the right to discriminate. Nice boomer. He's actually made an executive order to put Bibles back into the public schools, according to this lady. I hadn't heard that. That is something very worrisome and dear to us, our religious freedom, she says, referring to the liberal attack on Christians, including from the New York Times. She said, it's almost like a reverse intolerance. If you have somebody that's maybe on the liberal side, they say we are intolerant of them. But it is inverse intolerant that we can't live out our faith, she said. That's how normal Christians see it, and that's the truth. Anybody who's actually not even a Christian can see that's what's going on. Here's some changes in the community. Another guy says when he was a child, the public schools were almost entirely white. Reminds me of what I told you about Steve King, Representative Steve King said. And now half of the kindergartners are Hispanic. He noticed that many of the Latinos in town were Catholic, and they worked or shopped on Sunday, which was traditionally a time of rest in Sioux Center. You know, some of these old Christian businesses, Chick-fil-A and others, close on Sundays. There's a place over in Arcadia, kind of where I grew up, Tacolita. And it was always closed on Sundays because the owners were Christian. I guess they took that as their Sabbath. But listen to this man. He's a young man, 36 years old, a father. I guess it's not that young. But he said, is he a man of integrity? Referring to Trump. Absolutely not. What? She interviewed the wrong people. Does he stand up for some of our moral Christian values? Yes, he said. That's Mr. Schouten, S-C-H-O-U-T-E-N. So this guy's kind of blind, but at least he supports Trump in some sense. The other guys agreed, I'm not going to say he's a Christian, but he just doesn't attack us, his friend said. So she's interviewing dummies, but they're not that dumb that they don't support Trump. But these people are not normal Christians. These aren't the type of Christians that, by and large, support Trump, I don't think. I think there's a lot of people who love and see him as a Christian. His wife talked about after the election of President Barack Obama, the country seemed to undergo a cultural shift. That's for sure. But it was already changed, but the ugliness came forth. It was dangerous to voice your Christianity, she said, because we were viewed as bigots, as racists. We were labeled as the haters and the ones who are causing all the derision and all the problems in America. Blame it on the white believers. She's not wrong about that. None of them said that they had wanted to vote for Trump, but they did, when he was the last option, one woman said, and the group laughed. So these are just these nice fake Christians, but not so fake that they couldn't vote for Trump. But, you know, I do know some people like this. I know people who, they play humble and modest and think that he's not modest. They think he's a narcissist or prideful or arrogant, when in reality, they're judging him. But they still support him, right? They still vote for him because they're not that dumb. They're not that off the deep end. But they're the ones secretly judging him and judging others. And even though they lived more modest and quiet lives, it's not that realness. And that realness is what he has now. I don't know if he's always had it, because he did do some crazy things in his life. But maybe he always kind of has, but he's just had a wild life. You know, if you had that much power and that strong personality to take and get what you want, would you have been that pure? Would you have lived a pure life? The people who are like shy and quiet and poor, relatively speaking to him. Nobody's really poor in this country, but poor in terms of not able to afford just any old thing that you want. So just, you know, people have a false sense of superiority over people who live these wild lives like Trump used to. But he's real, and that's what people love about him. That's what's inspiring and exciting to people, is that he's telling the truth and standing on it and standing behind it, even when he's standing alone, seemingly standing alone. There's a lot of us who support what he says, but you just don't hear it in the mainstream media, which is overrun with sleazy people like this lady. And I use the term lady very loosely. I'm not calling her a loose lady. I'm just talking about... Anyways, Obama. Speaking of Obama, this is going into more of what she's talking about. I have to hurry through this. I got to get to some callers. One lady says the years of the Obama presidency were confusing to her. She heard talk of giving freedoms to gay people and members of minority groups, but to her it felt like freedoms were being taken away, and that's true, even from those people, but they're just too dumb to realize it. And she was turning into a minority. I do not love Trump. This is this lady talking. I think Trump is good for America as a country. I think Trump is going to restore our freedoms, where we spent 8 years, if not more, with our freedoms slowly being taken away. It's been 100 years, more like 120 years. I don't know, maybe even 150 years. Caucasian Americans are becoming a minority rapidly. And she explained, if you're a hardworking Caucasian American, I've never heard that term, Caucasian American, but whatever, your rights are being limited because you are seen as against all the races or against women, she said. Or there are people who think that because we are conservative, have conservative values and value the family, and I value submitting to my husband, I must be against women's rights. Which is a joke, right? Her voice grew strong. I would say it takes stronger women to submit to a man than to want to rule over him. And I would argue that point to death, she said. All right, lady. She said that she felt freer now. Mike Pence is a wonderful gentleman, she said. Poor lady. This is probably a very bad analogy, but I'd say he is like a very supportive, submissive wife to Trump. He does the hard work, and the husband gets the glory. I don't know what this lady is talking about. She turned to her husband. Let's be real. Do you have any clue what goes on in our children's lives on a daily basis? No. Wow. She said that to her husband. That is a bad sign of what's going on amongst the Christians. Pence, you can picture as your father, as your dad, he said. Anyways, Hispanics. There's Hispanics in this community, right? They're being more and more overrun. All he remembered was thinking that Mr. Trump sounded like Hugo Chavez, this Hispanic guy says. And he's a Christian, the former Venezuelan strongman. And Hugo Chavez was like a crazy guy. 20 years ago, less than 3% of Sioux County was Hispanic. This is in Iowa, this county. Now the figure is nearly quadrupled, largely as the pork and dairy industries have relied on Hispanic workers. Such a shame. Ill-gotten gain. Most Hispanic migrants who come to the area are very Catholic. They convert to evangelicalism. Mr. Alvarado is this guy who's talking this way. He said he has this church, or he's part of this church or whatever, and he talks about how these people keep a low profile, especially the ones without the right papers, writes this woman. Can you imagine writing like that? They mean illegally here. Illegally here. At first, he even had trouble finding these people. Most of them seem to stick to work, home, and the grocery store. They keep a low profile, the illegals. There's fear in the people, the fear of losing everything. And he's complaining. This guy is 64 years old. He appreciates that Trump defends Christians, but he says we should welcome foreigners, immigrants. See? Even the so-called Hispanic Christians have a diluted sense of reality. He says, doing things like dividing the family, I don't think that is very Christian. What a sucker. And building walls instead of helping people with medicine, food, especially old people getting sick for not having enough income. This guy is so deluded. And he says that he does not talk about Trump with the white Christians around him. See that division? He says, they realize that he is kind of persecuting Hispanics, he says. So they won't talk about much about that in front of me. And the same thing, he won't tell them his opinion. See that evil division between the so-called Christians, the Hispanic Christians who are suckers for the liberal lie of racism, and the white Christians who are kiss-ups, these nice kiss-ups. He grew quiet when he thought of why he believed the white evangelical community around him supported Trump. Then he spoke as if it were obvious. They're not Hispanic. They have not been living what we have been going through. What is he talking about? They have to make their own decisions. I understand that point of view. For them, the benefit is that he is pro-Christian, which is one of the things I like about him. But he should be pro-America. And he should see that these people coming in illegally and supporting all kinds of, they support liberals for the most part, the Hispanics do. And they don't have any love for the whites or America. They don't have any loyalty to America. They still have the loyalty to family and la raza and stuff like that. And then there's this dumb BLM stuff, Black Lives Matter stuff. The black population is less than 1% in this Sioux Center area. Sioux Center is the name of this town, right? And they talk about how, they have the typical thing about Black Lives Matter feels alienating. And it does. It is alienating. It's purposely alienating. They like to divide and conquer, these socialistic people, anti-American socialistic people. And so they talk about how Christianity and conservative politics are fused together. That's because conservative politics supports Christian values. It supports what's right, really. And the Democrats are anti-what's right. They talk about how there's signs of fraying at the edges of this coalition of Christian evangelicals who support Trump, especially with women and with the younger people. If even a small fraction turns away from Mr. Trump, it could make the difference in this re-election. That's what this woman hopes. That's what she writes. Ms. Elizabeth Diaz. And then they talk about the photo op. They talk. I got to end this real fast, but they talk about the what they call the photo op. That's when Trump ended, just in one fell swoop, he ended the riot in this Lafayette Square outside of the White House, and then he crossed the street and held up a Bible, posed with the Bible in his hand, holding it up in front of St. whatever John's Church, which is a corrupt filthy church anymore. It's filled with what are those people called? It's a liberal version of Christianity where they are not Christian at all anymore. They support Black Lives Matter. Sleazy. It's not Presbyterian, it's Episcopalian. Yeah, United Methodist, but Episcopalian is what that church is. So it's just a rotted church spiritually. But he's standing in front of it with the Bible as a symbol of standing for Christianity because BLM is anti-Christian. The Antifa are anti-Christian and anti-American. And he's standing for what's right. And they called it just a photo op. And they said armed officers tear-gassed peaceful protesters. First of all, it wasn't tear gas, it was smoke bombs. And they were not peaceful. There were some people who were playing peaceful, but if you're supporting Black Lives Matter, you're not peaceful. You're smearing decent people and supporting criminals and people who hate cops. And everybody knows that blacks hate cops for no good reason at all. You heard Earl. So right on to President Trump. He said, we have the greatest country in the world. We're going to keep it nice and safe. Isn't that so nice? They called it an instantly infamous moment. I say they, I mean she, this Elizabeth Diaz woman. For anti-Christian pro-BLM idiots, yes. Covered by cable news and decried by Democrats as an unseemly photo op. But in Sioux Center, many evangelicals saw it as recognizing the Bible, we are one nation under God. And that's right. He's willing to stand out there and take a picture of it for the country to see he was standing up for Christianity, according to this guy, Schutten. And this guy, Schutten, says, is he a Christian? Absolutely not. But yes, he is. So anyways, I had to share that with you. I wanted to react to that article because I had to read through it to see if this woman got any real insight. Apparently, she didn't get one person who loved that, find one person, or at least she didn't put it out there. She should have talked to Jesse Lee Peterson, right? Who loves what Trump is about, saying that he's more of a Christian than anybody he's seen in his lifetime, right? Anyways, I got to get to some calls, and then I also got to read some super chats, and on and on and on. Bill, who's been on hold, first-time caller from Peru, South America. Thank you for holding, Bill. What's up? How are you doing?
Hey, good, James. Thank you for taking my call first. Listen, yeah, what I want to say is I've got COVID-19, looks like. I've got I lost my sense of smell, muscle aches, cough, the whole shebang.
Yeah.
No fever.
No fever.
The thing is that I saw Trump making a big deal about hydroxychloroquine about 3 months ago, so I bought it. Here it's over the counter.
Okay.
You can get it for about maybe 20 cents a pill. So I bought a whole bunch.
Over the counter, people say that. I don't know what that means. Does that mean you have to get a prescription?
No.
Or you just go to the pharmacy and say, hey, can you grab me that?
You show up and say, give me some of this. And
okay.
Give it to you.
All right.
So the same with the azithromycin. That's changed. Azithromycin now requires a prescription, and zinc, liquid zinc. So I got all this stuff, and I'm 61, and I've had problems with my lungs. I've had some heart issues, and let me tell you something. I died. I leave 5 orphans because my wife died. So
wow.
The thing is yeah. Now here's why I mentioned that. Multiply that by 10 million people or 5 million people. People who get COVID-19.
Right.
There's a backstory, every one of them, that Democrats are not realizing, that Fauci does not realize. This stuff that is anecdotal is a bunch of BS, And so look at a little country like Costa Rica. Costa Rica believes in hydroxychloroquine.
Okay.
And they're using it, and they have a 1%, less than 1% death rate, and they have a very, very low infection rate. And in Peru, they got off the hydroxychloroquine train. They got on the Fauci train, and I have a 5% death rate.
Wow.
They have a huge number of people with COVID. Unbelievable. We are awash with it. But I wanted to say that. And also, I come from a background that's interesting regarding, the whole Hispanic thing. Unfortunately, Hispanics have this is a great party, what have you got? How much have you loaded up on your tray, Pedro?
Oh, yeah.
And what meaning is
I've noticed that.
Listen, U.S. citizenship is like a toy that comes out of a piñata party. That's how it's become.
Yeah.
And that is a real tragedy. Because U.S. citizenship should be something special. And by the way, one other final thing. Regarding voter suppression, that's hogwash. Here in Peru, a person who's making $100 a month, $200 a month, has a photo ID with their signature on there and their fingerprint. And they go to their voter precinct. They open a book. They look at the person's face, look at their photo ID, and say, okay, take this pen, sign, give us a fingerprint, and here's your paper ballot. And they have the results within like 12 hours on election day.
Yeah.
It makes us look pathetic.
Yeah.
We look like a third world country compared to a developing country like Peru. And so this thing about it's voter suppression, well, that's like, hey, man, that's travel suppression if you ask somebody for a driver's license when they get on a plane. Oh, you don't have your driver's license?
I know.
Sorry. That's
right.
Or beer suppression if you want to buy a six-pack of Schlitz and you don't have a photo ID that says you're right. That's a bunch of BS. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say. By the way, I have a friend. I live in Peru, but I work with U.S. media. I have a friend who's a former slave.
Nice.
I'd love to get him on your show. I'd love to get him on your show, James.
Okay. Well, send me the
message. He has a big message for BLM.
Say that again.
And Grandmaster. I said he has a very, very big message for Black Lives Matter and for the NFAC, the Grandmaster J coalition. And I'd love to have him on your show.
All right. Well, send me the tip. The Hake Report at gmail.com.
Okay, great. The Hake Report at Gmail. All right, awesome, yep. James. Thanks a million.
Appreciate it, Bill.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Don't get me banned on Facebook for promoting that hydroxychloroquine stuff. Do your own research. But, you know, they do try to claim that it's just anecdotal when there are people who've studied it, right? And it's been around for a long time. It's interesting. But don't get me banned on Facebook and Twitter and Periscope and YouTube, right? Did you know that they're suppressing people for that? And they're coming out with all this propaganda about children getting getting COVID, right? Because Trump said, you know, it's very difficult for them to get COVID and suffer from it much at all. They might get a little sniffle and be over it in 15 minutes. And of course, you know, he's just speaking in general terms. And of course, you're going to be able to find examples of people dying, of children dying from any number of sicknesses, including COVID, right? What a mess. These people aren't for putting the truth out. There's this guy that I support, even knowing that he is a liberal, Michael Tracy. He used to work for Young Turks, but he's very open about what he believes in terms of being a liberal, but yet he's trying to put the truth out. Like he was debunking the Russia thing years ago, and now he's debunking the idea that these were peaceful protests. He's talking about the damage caused by the riots around the country. And I named some of the places: Green Bay, Wisconsin? I think so. And places in Indiana and elsewhere. Small towns that have businesses that get destroyed by Black Lives Matter, or at least the locations get destroyed, and it hurts the businesses. Some of them are still boarded up. Part of that is due to this COVID shutdown. And the disease is out. It is spreading exponentially, which is to be expected. It is not alarming, but they act like it's alarming and disheartening, and what a mess. Joe Maddock gave a diamond and said Diaz, referring to Elizabeth Diaz, but it's with an S, not a Z, has AOC crazy eyes, the window to the soul. Yeah, I think a lot of people, more and more people, I think, are getting those crazy eyes. I could be wrong, but it seems like it's becoming more and more common. I think that it has to do with, like, fear. People are afraid have that. Just got my "You Are a Beta Male" shirt. Nice, Hydro PX, with the diamond. Today is a good day to arrest Democrats for treason, says Joe Maddock. Man, that would be a dream. Defund the police because reasons. Hashtag Sinatra says Dark Side of the Bear. What is Schlitz beer? I'd never heard of that. Is it a white thing? It's a brand. Appreciate the gifted subscriptions, Silosopher. Congrats to Red Ice TV. Right on. Appreciate you tuning in. So, I want to cover this. I touched on this in Hake News. How these students... Okay, so some students were suspended for posting pictures that went viral and were reflected poorly on this school over in, Georgia? North Paulding High School in Georgia. And it looked like a white school. Didn't look very black. Georgia, there is a lot of blacks and there's a lot of whites, right? But from what I recall, there was this picture actually it went viral on Twitter, right? A bunch of liberal celebrities posted about it. How there's this crowded hallway, school hallway, and the students were not social distancing. And according to this girl, Hannah Waters, 2 T's, Waters, she shared this thing and said there was no social distancing, 10% mask use rate. It was chaos. And it just reminds me of that, that slur against white women. And I don't know if this woman is white, but there's a slur against white women who meddle and want to act like you're not social distancing enough and you're going to spread COVID and all that stuff. There's 9 people so far from this school that caught the COVID, the Chinese virus. Thank you, China and liberals and communists and globalists. But the district said that mask wearing was a personal choice. And they said that they know that social distancing would not be enforceable. Maybe they should have done there's this one country that I think it was Holland, the Netherlands. They said, okay, you don't have to wear masks except for in places where you can't stay far enough away from each other, 1.5 meters away, right? 6 feet or so. In, for example, subways and buses and stuff, you should wear a mask, they said. So maybe in the hallways they should wear a mask, I guess. I don't know. Maybe some of you guys are not going to like that. But maybe, I don't know. The Asians were doing it. We've seen pictures of the Asians doing it ever since. I've noticed it when they had that SARS epidemic, which killed only 800 people that we know of. Maybe it killed more. It might have killed more than 800 people because they don't always tell the truth, China. And SARS was an epidemic in China back in 2003 or so. For a few months or several months, it was like a crazy cold. And it was a coronavirus as well, by the way. And the common cold is also a coronavirus, by the way. Just a side note. But you saw them starting to all wear masks. And even over here in America, you see them wearing masks. And I thought it was to protect them from us. But it's actually more effectively protecting us from them, supposedly. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of both. But this school nurse, a female, named Amy Westmoreland, she resigned over concerns over the virus safety. Why would you resign if you're trying to help? I don't know, maybe her hands were tied, and I don't know. It seems counterproductive. It seems like it's kind of showboating, posturing as though she's caring. Listen to this lady's talk. She told the local news, Amy Westmoreland, school nurse. She said, I don't feel supported. I don't feel safe. And she supposedly resigned before the photos circulated, according to her. She said, I feel as though I need to take a stand so that these children who don't have a voice and are being discouraged from speaking have a voice. I don't trust these women. This doesn't, or this girl. And yes, maybe the school should have done things a little bit differently. And schools in general don't actually look out for the kids. They look out for protecting themselves and protecting the teachers for the most part. There's awful teachers that can't get fired all over the country. This principal, his name is Gabe Carmona. Maybe it has a heavy Hispanic population. It sounds like a Hispanic name. Maybe it's not. Maybe he's Italian, right? Carmona. What is that, guys? But Gabriel. I don't know. But, you know, Italian's not white either, right? Anyways, it can be. If you're Christopher Columbus, right on. The rest of you guys, if you're the mafia, stay out. Get back out there. Anyways, it just feels like propaganda. I recognize there's going to be irresponsible people on both sides. For example, there have been people, these crazy hit piece feeling stories of these Christian preachers and Christian... Who's that? That's Amy Westmoreland? That's not a name that's befitting that face. Is she married or is she mixed? This Amy Westmoreland girl, according to Google, according to my people at the board operators, that's Amy Westmoreland. Liberals are, I mean, I was going to say liberals are Asian. Asians are liberals. Maybe not as bad as the Hispanics and the blacks, but they are disproportionately liberals. And then they fall for this racism stuff. And for this, like, school stuff. Supposedly over 97,000 children have tested positive for this COVID thing, which is supposedly, according to CNN, right? A horrible number. But come on, what are their actual symptoms? And they talk about, the grandparents. Maybe the grandparents shouldn't be around the grandkids. They don't have to be around the grandkids. In fact, Jesse Lee Peterson says that it's better for them not to be. Because look at how you turned out. Think about what the grandmother's going to do to your... Anyways, whatever. Like I told you, I liked the grandmother that spoiled me, and I was afraid of the grandmother who didn't spoil me. What a mess. We're opening the treasure chest, guys. I'm going to get back to a couple of calls, or maybe just one, just running towards the end here. But thank you very much to Joe Maddock, Silosifer, Dark Side of the Bear What, and Hydro PX, Evgeny Crosby 2020. Thank you, man. How do you pronounce this word? Child Herald, or Kilde Herald. ChildeHarold. It sounds like a white name that I should be able to pronounce, but I can't. John WX15, Noah's Arkansas, Immortal Firmament. Interesting. Is that a reference to the FE? Flat Earth? I don't know. And Official Leonard. Appreciate the support. The lemons, the diamonds, the ice cream. Let me quickly get to Bible Go-To Guy. We need some truth in here after reading all of that New York Times, New York Slimes stuff. Hat tip to the Great One. I don't know why they call Mark Levin the Great One. It sounds... You guys know who Mark Levin is? Anyways, famous radio host. Host of a Fox News show. He's Jewish, but he likes the Constitution. He likes America. We'll let him stay. Bible Go-To Guy, Los Angeles, California. How are you doing? What's up?
Excellent, James. And how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
You know, I just got to throw a quick piece of logic out there that I think everybody's missing this point. Okay, you know Maze is your favorite caller. Favorite number one caller, always will be. Now, what if Maze was a grocer ringing up groceries every day, risking her life at Vaughn's, and then the rest of us American men are told to go hide under our bed from the disease with our mask on?
Yeah.
How does that make any sense? That is calling us a cowards.
Right.
We're having Maze go ring up our groceries every day, risking her life, while the rest of us hide under the bed?
And she's not even really risking her life. I mean, yeah, you encounter some interesting people.
That's right.
That's true.
These guys encounter people 6 feet away all the time.
Less than 6 feet sometimes.
Less than 6 feet. And here we are, the rest of us. We got to stay home. We got to save our kids. We got to save ourselves. But let the little old lady ring up our groceries.
All right.
This is a nation of cowards. I don't get it.
Yeah, we should be. It's out. There's this guy named Dick Masterson who used to run New Project 2. I think New Project 2 is closed down. The website's still there, but
yeah,
he said on his show early on, this disease is out. It's here to stay. It's not going away. Don't close anything. Maybe the old folks, they want to stay away or stay home or whatever. Take extra precautions because this is allegedly, and I guess it's not even allegedly. It seems to be a crazier disease to some people than other normal diseases like the common flu or the common cold. But the flu can be kind of crazy too. But it's out, so why close anything up? I think that it's propaganda that is people. The mainstream media and the Democrats are the enemies of businesses. Small businesses, and you know what? Who's benefiting off of this stuff closing down? I heard that they're thinking of even using malls as warehouses for Amazon. Isn't that disgusting? Thinking of malls as being malls by comparison are, shopping mall is a small business or it's a bunch of small businesses who've come together to have a mall, and they're shutting stuff down.
Yeah, they're in negotiation for that.
That's sick.
Amazon is in negotiation with the places like Sears, that used to exist in malls.
Yeah.
Make it what do they call it? Their distribution centers.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they bought up a bunch of Whole Foods, right? It's crazy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's, these are really, and these people are in bed with the government. It's not just, people blame capitalism. They own Whole Foods now. This is the wrong kind of capitalism. You need freedom, but with morality. And these people have no morals. It's crazy.
Amazon got their big boost from no taxes.
What does that mean? Like, what does that mean? Because I don't understand. I got to end. You can explain that to me another time, actually.
10-4. Bye.
Appreciate it, Bible Go-To guy. Take care.
Sure.
Immortal Firmament gave another diamond. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Good to see all of you guys. It is past the end of the hour. I know we started a little late, a couple minutes late, but we have to keep moving. All right, guys. TheHakeReport.com for my stuff. JesseLeePeterson.com for the Jesse Lee Peterson stuff. Yeah, only big businesses are essential. They use stuff that's. I'll get into it later. I've talked to you guys about that stuff before. It's really sick. All right, guys. See you later.